In this chapter, we are going to study how organisms reproduce. So, in the previous classes, we have discussed about various life processes like nutrition, respiration and excretion, etc. So, all those were termed as life process. Now, when we come to reproduction, it is not absolutely necessary for life to exist. There are organisms which do not reproduce, and there are even in human beings who are not willing to have kids as well. So reproduction is not absolutely necessary for life to exist, but it ensures the continuity of a species. So let us discuss the reproduction in plants and animals in this chapter. So as I said, reproduction is just to maintain the life of an individual organism. Not so necessary, but still it helps for the species to survive. And reproduction, it happens in different mode. So the question is whether an organism create exact copies of themselves. So we all know that we have certain characteristics which we have got from our parents. Maybe we look like our parents, all that. So there are certain characteristics which are transferred from one generation to the other. So in some organisms, the replica or the progeny or the new individual that is formed looks exactly like the parent, or they are identical. So how can we say that whether an organism reproduce the exact copies of itself? So it is basically a biochemical reaction. So first, so many changes are taking place inside your cell. Basically, it is the DNA that determines the characteristics of organisms. So these DNA we inherit from our parents. So in a unicellular organisms like amoeba, they just transfer the DNA to the progeny. So it looks almost identical. So whether the organism produce exact copy depends upon how accurate the process of biochemical reaction that take place inside the DNA. So every time the DNA makes it copies, some error can happen, and because of such errors the organism need not be identical. So it all depends on the accuracy of the biochemical reactions. Now coming on to the term variation. Variation, to define it, is the difference in gene. So you might have seen or eaten different type of banana. So there some bananas may be small, some may be big. Similar with the case of mangoes, there are different varieties. So how do this variation happen? It happens as a result of changes taking place inside your DNA. So in this picture you can see the elephant. One is an Asian elephant, another is an African elephant. So if you carefully notice, you can see that the ears of an African elephant is slightly bigger. Now how has this variation happened in the elephant? In African elephant, it lives in a very humid condition. So in order to give out the heat, it needs bigger ears. So this variation depends upon the environment as well. Not only your genes, but also the environment which you live in also add to some characteristics in your genes. So that is how the variation is happening inside the body. Now the types of reproduction. There are basically two types of reproduction. One is the sexual mode of reproduction, other is the asexual mode of reproduction. What is the difference? In sexual reproduction, you have specialized cells. called gametes. So these cells help in the process of reproduction, and the organism which is derived through sexual reproduction are not identical. They have characteristic from two parents, like we have inherited the character of both our father and mother. So in sexual mode of reproduction, we are not exactly like our parents, but we have inherited some features from our mother and some features from our father. So that is about sexual reproduction. Coming to asexual mode of reproduction, here one organism make a copy of itself. In this process, the new organism are genetically identical. So they look exactly like their parents. This type of reproduction is mainly seen in amoeba and many unicellular organisms. Now first let us study about amoeba. So the first mode of asexual reproduction we are going to discuss is fission. So in fission we take two examples, that one is amoeba and the other is plasmodium. So in amoeba what happens is, amoeba is a unicellular organism. It has a nucleus and a cytoplasm as well. So first the nucleus of the amoeba divides, and then the cytoplasm divides, and then it forms two identical daughter cells. So this type of fission is called binary fission, because from one organism two daughter cells are formed. Alright, so that is why the term binary fission. Now coming to plasmodium, in plasmodium also it is the fission only that is taking place, but what happens is at the same time many daughter cells are formed. So it is termed as multiple fission. So binary fission in amoeba and multiple fission in plasmodium. Now one more thing which you have to remember, which is also mentioned in your NCERT, is about leishmania. Now amoeba is the division can happen in any plane. Alright, so but in leishmania it has a whip-like structure. So in leishmania the direction of division is somewhat parallel to its body structure, whereas in amoeba it can happen in any plane. When I mean by any plane, you can divide it in any way you want, but only two daughter cells are formed, hence it is called binary fission. And in plasmodium at the same time many daughter cells are formed, hence termed as multiple fission. Now next mode of asexual reproduction is fragmentation. So fragmentation is mainly seen in Spirogyra. So in this what happens is, it simply divides into daughter cells, like simply breaks up into smaller, that fragment means to break into smaller pieces. So these smaller pieces grow into a fully matured Spirogyra, hence it is termed as fragmentation. So here there is nothing like nucleus dividing first or cytoplasm later. So here it just breaks into pieces and each piece grow into a separate new individual. Now the next mode of reproduction we are going to study is regeneration. In regeneration it is mainly seen in simple animals like Hydra and Planaria. Remember, in Hydra there is another mode of reproduction as well which we will study, but for now let's understand what regeneration is. In regeneration it is carried out by a specialized cells. It is not the same exactly like reproduction. Here it will divide into something like similar to fragmentation. Here it can be cut into any number of pieces and each piece grows into a separate organism. So if you are cutting the head part first, then from the head part the rest of the body grows. If you are cutting the tail part, the rest of the body grows. So that is what is happening in regeneration. Regeneration means generating from what is existing. So it is somewhat similar to fragmentation only. Now Another mode of reproduction is budding. In organisms like Hydra, they use regenerative cells for reproduction. So here in Hydra, a bud develops as an outgrowth due to repeated cell division at a specific site. These buds develop into tiny individuals, and when they fully mature, they come out from the parent's body and become a new individual. So that is budding. From the body of the Hydra, you can see a bud coming, and that bud, upon maturation, it cuts out from the parent body and then grows on its own. Now, vegetative mode of propagation. So before going to vegetative mode of propagation, we will just see what is happening in plants also. In plants also there are two types of reproduction, that is sexual and asexual. So in asexual we have budding, regeneration and fission, etc. But in sexual reproduction, it happens through pollination, through a process called pollination, which can again be divided into self-pollination and cross-pollination, and we will study each of them in detail. So before going further, let's understand the vegetative propagation. So in vegetative propagation, parts like root, stem and leaves develop into new plants under appropriate condition. This property is called vegetative propagation. So you might have seen, or you might have planted, you might have cut some stem part of a plant from your friend's house and planted it in your home. So this is a kind of vegetative reproduction. This is mainly used in methods like layering or grafting, which we don't need to study at this point of time. So mainly we grow certain plants like sugarcane, grapes and even oranges for agricultural purpose by using this vegetative mode of propagation. Now the advantage is that they are genetically identical and similar to the parents and have all the characteristics. Now tissue culture. Tissue culture, new plants are grown from removing the tissue or separating the cells from the growing tip of a plant. Here, the cells are placed in an artificial medium where they divide rapidly to form a small group of cells. So, these group of cells are called callus. So, that is called callus formation. What you do is, you take a plant or a tissue, you remove a tissue of the plant and grow them in artificial media. So in this medium they multiply and form a group of cells. This is called callus. So after that the callus is transferred to another test tube where it is provided with hormones. So the plants are then put in the soil and they can grow into mature plants. So using tissue culture, many plants are grown, and the most important advantage is you can get disease-free plants, as you have to understand that plants are also affected with various type of fungal and bacterial diseases. So if you are growing a plant in tissue culture, you can get disease-free plants. Now, spore formation. Spore formation is another mode of asexual reproduction. In this is commonly seen in bread mold. So, in that bread mold, sometimes you might have observed a thread-like structure growing from it. So, these thread-like structure are called the hyphae. So, from the hyphae, you can see at the end of the hyphae a globular structure. So, this structure is called the sporangia, and inside the sporangia there are spores which are present. So, it is through these spores the new individuals arise. So, in the spores, it lies dormant. Dormant means inactive. So, immediately they don't form a new individual. Gradually, as and when the necessary conditions come, they would form the new individual. So, till then, the sporangia is very thick enough to protect the spores inside it. So, that is what is called spore formation, mainly seen in Rhizopus. Now coming on to sexual reproduction. Now we have discussed about various modes of asexual reproduction. Now in asexual reproduction, you can see that the individuals are almost identical to its parents. Now what is the advantage of sexual reproduction over the asexual reproduction? So in sexual reproduction, there are two parents involved. So we get a combination of new genes, and these genes lead to a totally new individual. So this individual will have a mix of both characteristics. So that will result in the evolution of a species. So that is why sexual mode of reproduction is preferred over the asexual mode of reproduction. Now sexual reproduction in flowering plants. So we are discussing only about flowering plants. There are plants which do not flower as well. So in flowering plants, we have two types of plants. One is unisexual organism, unisexual, and the other is bisexual. So what do you mean by unisexual and what do you mean by bisexual? In unisexual plant, the plant has separate male and female reproductive structure. For instance, if you have noticed the papaya plant, the papaya will have a male papaya plant and a female papaya plant. So the male papaya plant is different and the female papaya plant is different. Now through certain agents like wind, or you have birds, butterflies and insects. So through these agents, the pollination we will discuss, so will take place. So that is called unisexual plant. That means one plant will have the male reproductive organ and the other plant will have the female reproductive organ. So the male reproductive part of the plant is called stamen. So the stamen consists of a tube which is called the pollen tube, and mostly the pollen grains are yellowish in color. So when we discussed control and coordination in plants, we have studied about chemotropism. So in that I have told that the female reproductive part of the plant secretes some chemicals which attracts the pollen towards it. So same way the stamen is the male reproductive plant. And in some organism, when you discuss about the bisexual plant, in bisexual plant both the male and female part are present in a single plant. Alright, so you have both the stamen, that is the male reproductive, and stigma, which we will see in the same plant. So remember, stamen is the male reproductive part and it produces pollen grain. Now the female reproductive part of the flower is called stigma or the carpel. So the stigma has an elongated tube called the style and bulged structure called the ovary. So the bottom part is swollen and bulged and it is called the ovary. So it is the female reproductive part is the stigma, which consists of a style and an ovary. Now the ovary contains ovule and each ovule has an egg cell. So remember, two type of flowers are there. One is the unisexual. In unisexual type of plants, both the male and female, that is the stamen and the stigma or the carpel. Stigma and the carpel are the same. So in a unisexual plant, both are present in separate plants. For example, in papaya. Now for a bisexual flower, both the male reproductive part, that is the stamen, and the female reproductive part, that is the stigma, are present in a single plant. So that is about the male and female reproductive parts of the plant. Now coming on to fertilization. Now what do you mean by fertilization? Fertilization is a process by which the pollen fuses with the ovule. Now we have seen that the stamen contains a pollen tube and it produces pollen grains, and we have also seen the carpel which contains the ovary, and inside the ovary there is an egg cell. So this pollen grains will fuse with the egg cell inside the ovule and form a zygote. This process of fusion of pollen grain with the ovule is called fertilization. So now how does fertilization happen? Fertilization happens through the process called pollination. So pollination is a process by which the pollen grains from the male reproductive part, that is the stamen, are transferred into the female reproductive part, that is the stigma. So these are facilitated or these are assisted by certain agents called like wind, air, birds, butterflies, insects, etc. So there are two types of pollination. Suppose in a bisexual plant, that is in a plant where both the stigma and the stamen are present in a single plant, they can just cross each other. You can see in the picture, it is both are located in the same plant. So they just cross over to each other. You don't necessarily require an agent, but yes, definitely sometimes you require wind or butterfly to transfer. So, but self-pollination happens in a single flower because both the organs are present in the single flower. Now, the pollinating agents, as I said, butterflies, insects, etc. Now, in cross-pollination, you need an agent because both organs, that is the male part or the stamen, is located in say plant A and the stigma or the female part is located in plant B. Now they are located far apart. So you need an agent to connect this. So in such type of fertilization, you definitely need agents like wind, air or water or even animals. So this type of pollination is called cross pollination. Now after fertilization, what happens? After fertilization, what is immediately formed is called zygote. Zygote is nothing but the fusion of the pollen grains with the ovules inside the ovary. So that is called zygote, and it forms an embryo. Where the embryo is formed? The embryo is formed in the ovule. And now where is the ovule located? Inside the ovary. Ovary is the female reproductive part. It is a part of the stigma. We have seen the stigma contains an elongated part called the style and a bulged, swollen or the swollen part called the ovary. So inside the ovary we have the ovule. So this embryo develops within this ovule, and the ovule develops into a tough cord and is gradually converted into the seed. So, and now what happens to the ovary? The ovary grows and ripens into a fruit. So that is, you often have seen, if you have observed, before you can eat the mangoes, first you see are the flowers. So before the fruit comes, the flowering happens. So flowering is always followed by the ripening of fruits. So first how it is happening is that the ovary is what you eat as a fruit. Alright, so that is about the fertilization process and fate of fertilization in plants. Reproduction in human beings. So, reproduction, as we know, is a creation of new individuals from existing parents, and sexual mode of reproduction involves two parents, a male and a female. So, just like we saw in plants, there are certain special cells called gametes through which sexual reproduction happens. So in human beings, the male gamete is the sperm and the female gamete is the egg or the ovum. So the sperms produced by a specialized organ called testis, and the ovum is produced by an organ in the female reproductive part called the ovary. So it is through the fusion of ovum and sperm that the zygote is formed and subsequently developing into an embryo, and finally the baby is born. So before the process of sexual maturation happens, there are various changes that happens in our body. Now you know growth is a continuous process. We all grow with age and there are many changes taking place inside our body. So in both males and females, at a certain point of time, some evident or observable changes happen, like hair growth that is seen both in males and females, and particularly in females there is enlargement of the breast, and also there are hair growth over the armpits, the thighs, and also in the genital region. So these are all secondary sexual characters, as we say, and we have seen in the chapter control and coordination that certain hormones, like in females it is estrogen and in males it is testosterone, that causes these particular characteristics. So these characteristics are also required for the process of sexual maturation. Now we will study how the sperms are formed in the male reproductive system and how the ovum is formed in the female reproductive system. Now the structure of a male reproductive system. The male reproductive system consists of a pair of testes. Now these testes are located outside the abdominal cavity in a sac-like structure called the scrotum. Now why the testes are located outside the abdominal cavity? For the formation of sperm, a temperature below the normal body temperature, that is the normal body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. So the temperature required is well below 37 degrees Celsius. So for that purpose, the testes are located outside the abdominal cavity inside the scrotum. Now from the testes you can see a tube-like structure emerging, and this is called the vas deferens. So this vas deferens is connected to the urinary bladder and finally it opens out through the urethra. So what happens is the sperms are produced in the testis and now it is transferred through the vas deferens, and there are some glands which are called the prostate gland and also seminal vesicles. So these also add their secretions as it passes through the vas deferens. So when it enter into the urinary bladder, it is a mix of secretion which contains the sperm, also contains the secretion from the prostate gland and also from the seminal vesicles, and hence this secretion is called semen, and it is finally ejected out through the urethra. So in males it is a common passage for both urine and sperms. So it passes through a common passage called urethra. This is about the male reproductive system. Now coming on to the female reproductive system. Female reproductive system consists of a pair of ovary, and from the ovaries a tube emerges. This tube is called the fallopian tubule, and you have a structure which is inverted V shape, which is called the uterus, and from the uterus you can see the cervix and outside the vagina. So vagina is the genital opening in females. So in males it is urethra. There is only one passage for both urine and sperms or the semen. But in female there are two separate openings. One is the vagina, and other is the urethra. Urethra is separate opening and vagina is a separate opening. Now we will see how the process of formation of ovum take place. See, when a girl is born, she is born with a number of immature ovum or immature egg cells. So as the girl obtains the age of puberty, these eggs which are immature will start to mature. So at each month, one of the eggs from one ovary at a time will mature. So this matured egg is actually called the ovum. So this ovum is released by ovary at a time. See, in a month, one right ovary will release an egg. The next month it is the left ovary that will release the egg. So when the girl is born, she has a number of immature cells, immature egg cells, out of which when she attains the age of puberty, one egg will mature and the ovary will release it. Now the released egg is taken to the fallopian tube. So what happens is, when there is an act of sexual intercourse, the sperms enter the vagina and through the cervix it reaches the fallopian tubule. So the fertilization, that is the fusion of sperm and ovum, happens in the middle of the fallopian tube. So after the process, so immediately after the formation of zygote is what is immediately formed after the fusion of sperm and the ovum. So this zygote gets implanted in the uterus, and that is the embryo. So when implantation happens, we call it embryo. So then the cell division happens, and in the 9 months the fetus or the zygote develop into a fully matured baby. So and it is finally, the mother gives birth through the contraction of smooth muscles present in the cervix and the vagina. So the baby comes out through the vaginal opening. So I said the fusion happens in the fallopian tubule. Now every month the uterus get prepared to receive a sperm. Remember, when the semen through the act of sexual intercourse reaches the vagina, the semen will have millions of sperms, but only one sperm will enter into the ovum and will fuse with it. Okay, there are many processes happening simultaneously which we don't need to study at this point. Just understand that the sperm enters through the vagina, then through the cervix, it enters the fallopian tube. There the process of fertilization or the fusion of sperm with the ovum take place, and the zygote is formed. The zygote is implanted in the uterus and it develops into a fully matured baby, and finally the birth is given through the vagina. So vagina is also called the birth canal. So now the uterus gets prepared every month to receive the sperm, but only through the act of sexual intercourse can the sperm enter the vagina. So when the sexual intercourse does not take place, what happens is all the preparation goes into waste. Like the uterus walls get thickened to receive the embryo, but the embryo formation is not taking place. Now the walls will collapse. So this comes out through the vagina as bleeding. So this bleeding is called menstruation. So in female reproductive system, a lot of processes happening, and there are a lot of hormones also taking part in these activities. But as of now, we only need to remember about estrogen. So estrogen is involved in that. Now there are various other hormones which are involved in the menstrual cycle or the menstrual process. Now the implanted zygote receives its nutrition from the mother. So this happens through a specialized organ called the placenta. The placenta has a connection with the mother. Now the placenta has a large number of villi. Now villi we have also seen in the digestive system. So these villi, the function is to help the increase the surface area of absorption. The mother's womb, it has many blood spaces, so because of the presence of villi, the placenta can absorb the nutrients from the mother's body, and also the waste products from the fetus is also taken by the mother's body. So that is how the fetus is nourished inside the uterus. And after 9 months of gestation is the whole period of pregnancy. So after the 9 months of gestation, the mother gives birth and the breastfeeding also happens. So the breastfeeding is also involves a lot number of changes and hormones. We don't need to study now, just understand the process, certain terms. Fertilization, which happens in the fallopian tubule. Implantation is the attachment, it is the attachment of the zygote to the walls of the uterus. So that process is called implantation. Now the whole process of pregnancy, the whole term of pregnancy, we say as a gestation period. Now another term is menstruation. As I said, every month the uterus in the girl's body is preparing to receive the sperms, but sperms can enter only through the act of sexual intercourse. So when it doesn't happen, the walls collapse, and as a result it comes out through the vagina as bleeding. So this is called menstruation. These are the important terms you have to remember: fertilization, implantation, menstruation, and also gestation period. Now this is what I said: when the egg is not fertilized, the whole process goes in vain. So the lining becomes thick and spongy, which breaks. The lining was very thick to receive the embryo, but now it becomes very thin and soft, and it breaks and it goes out through the vagina. This happens inside the body of a female when she starts to attain puberty. So that is called menstruation. So it continues to a period of up to 45 or 46. It can vary to different individuals. So from the start of menstruation to the end of menstruation is the reproductive life of a woman. That is what you have to understand. Now coming to reproductive health. So the sexual act is a very intimate process. It is a very close attachment of two individuals. So what happens is there are chances of diseases to spread from one individual to the other. And also another important thing which we need to understand is that we are living in a society which puts so much pressure on the individual. So there is always a pressure to get married, there is always a pressure to have children by the society, by the peers, etc. So sometimes the marriage or pregnancy happen even when you don't want it. So in order to understand that, we need to have an overview about reproductive health. So first what you have to understand is that there are, through the act of sexual intercourse, there are chances of various diseases to spread from one individual to the other, and these diseases are called STD or sexually transmitted diseases. The most important of sexually transmitted disease which you might have heard is the HIV or AIDS. So far the medical science do not have an absolute cure for HIV. So though we have drugs, certain antiviral drugs to prolong the life, actually we do not have a complete cure for AIDS yet. And there are other diseases like genital wart, and also hepatitis B also spreads through sexual intercourse, and also certain genital warts and chlamydiasis can also happen through sexual intercourse. So these are the overall, just understand, these are the STDs or sexually transmitted disease. Now the sexual act also has the tendency to lead to pregnancy. So sometimes the woman is not healthy enough to receive a baby. See, in order for a woman to carry a baby, she needs to be very healthy and fit, and also she needs to be mentally strong. So sometimes the woman herself is not prepared to receive a baby. There are certain conditions like that too. So in order to have a broader understanding, we need to understand how can we overcome the sexually transmitted disease as well as unwanted pregnancy. Also, in our society there are incidents of rapes, and through that unwanted pregnancies also happen. So how can we prevent all that? That is what we are going to see in what is called contraceptive methods. So first method of contraception. Contraception means to prevent pregnancy. How can we prevent pregnancy? And also it is not just to prevent pregnancy but also to prevent sexually transmitted disease. So basically contraception aim is to prevent pregnancy, because in a population, in a country like India where the population is almost 124 crores, so it's a huge population. So government is also putting pressure on individuals to have a proper family planning. So if the family planning is not proper, the population of the country will increase, and also we will have a deficit of resources. So that can have a lot more social complications as well. So how can we prevent these is through contraceptive methods. Even you might have seen in ads also, government is also promoting through various programs to use condoms. So there are certain NGOs and also there are social workers who visit home individually and teach the people how to use it as well. So that is one important method to prevent pregnancy as well as sexually transmitted disease. That is the use of condoms. The condoms, you have both the male type of condom and also female type of condom. Now the second mode of preventing pregnancy is having oral contraceptive pills. So these work through certain hormonal, these are basically hormones. So they counteract with the hormones produced in your body. Remember I said that the ovary releases egg every month. So this process is actually called ovulation. So these drugs inhibit the process of ovulation. So the egg is not produced. So that is the working of oral contraceptive pill. It is a pill which you have to take for a continuous period of 21 days if you do not intend to be pregnant. So that is oral contraceptive method. Now the other form of contraceptive method is intrauterine devices. So intrauterine devices is you plant certain devices inside the uterus. So what happens is, I told that the process of implantation happens inside the uterus. So when this copper T is implanted in the uterus, even though the zygote is formed, it cannot be implanted into the uterus. So that is how you prevent the implantation or pregnancy, by the use of copper T. Basically there are hormonal IUDs and copper T. The commonly known one is the copper T. So this copper T is placed in the uterus and hence the process of implantation. Implantation, I'll repeat once again, is the process of attachment of the zygote to the walls of the uterus. So now the uterus has a copper T. Because of that, the zygote or the embryo will not get attached to it. So that is how the intrauterine implant works. Now the other method is the surgery. So in surgery what you do is, it can be done in both. It can be done in males as well as it can be done in females. In males the process is called vasectomy. So in vasectomy what we do is, we have seen that the male reproductive organ consists of testis and a tube that is emerging from the testis, and this tube, as I said, the name of the tube is vas deferens. So the surgeon will cut the vas deferens and tie it. So what happens is, even though the sperms are produced, it will not reach the urinary bladder. So there you can inhibit the transport of sperms from the testis. That is the purpose of vasectomy, and this is the most successful method of contraception. That is, in males it is vasectomy and in females it is called tubectomy. In females, what is done is we have this fallopian tubule. So I said the ovum is released by the ovary. So the ovum so released is transported by the fallopian tubule. So what we do is we just cut the fallopian tubule into two, so that the ovum, though produced inside the ovary, will not reach the fallopian tubule. So it is the middle of the fallopian tubule that actually the fertilization take place. So we will cut the fallopian tubule in the beginning itself, so that the ovum, though produced, will not reach the middle of the fallopian tube. So this process is called tubectomy. This is the most successful method. That is, in males it is vasectomy and females in tubectomy. This is the most successful method of contraception or prevention of pregnancy.